I'd like to open the show up. Lummy, I have a Don Buchwald story.
Oh.
But in remembrance of him, I think he passed away either a day or two ago. Don Buchwald, the longtime agent for Howard Stern. He was. I think he dabbled in being an agent and having an agency for voice talent and radio personalities and things like that. But then he hit Howard, and I think at that point Don dropped everybody and just concentrated on Howard, and then had his assistants, deal with the talent. I think he had all. In fact, I just think a couple weeks ago I referenced Don Buchwald with offices in London, L.A., and New York.
Yes.
I forget what we were talking about, but somehow Don's name came up. I've met Don several times, and I know this is probably a tough day for Howard, my friend. And rest in peace, Don Buchwald. You were very kind to me in the few interactions that I had with you. And here's my Don Buchwald story. I only had one real face-to-face, long time dealing with Don Buchwald, but when Howard expressed to Don that as he was building his Howard 100 and 101 channels in circa 05, he had expressed, that he was interested in my show, me and my guys. And so rather than to fly me up for an interview, which they did, they flew me and Brent. And it was a weekend before Thanksgiving, I think in 05. It might have been 04. I don't know what day it is. And so we fly, and our instructions are go to the Don Buchwald office to meet Howard. But just Bubba. So Brent just basically flew up there to be my little buddy, so I didn't have to be by myself. And so I go by myself to Don Buchwald's office, and it's not overly fancy, but it's in a really historic part of, I think, Manhattan, and it's like on the third or fourth floor. I think he had the availability to take the steps or the elevator, but of course I took the elevator.
Of course.
I mean,
why not?
That's probably the difference between me and you, Dan. You'll take three. Will you go up 3 flights?
I'll go up 2 sometimes, but I won't do more.
Your
than 2.
cutoff is 2?
Well, I don't want to be sweaty.
Yeah, true. So I go to Don Buchwald's office, and now I've not gotten the job. I'm in consideration for this job to work on Howard's channel. No parameters as with regards to day parts, with regards to even having a chance. But I had an interview. So they had me waiting in the guest lobby there, which, was kind of by the secretary area. And then they're like, Mr. Buchwald, we'll see you now. Follow me. So I follow this woman into Don's office. Now, Don's office is super big, and it's facing the street, so you can see, I don't know what avenue's there, but it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool office. And Howard's not there. I'm like, okay. He's like, hey, sit down and tell me a little bit about yourself. I go, well, my name's Bubba Clem. I don't know how old was I in 04? 38. 38. I'm 38. I got a kid, and this is what he said to me. Don Buchwald only said one thing to me. I laid out kind of what I was all about. I got a kid. I'm not with his mother. I have 50% co-parenting. Well, I used to. Anyway, 50-50 on the parent deal. I've been in radio since 1986. There was a couple markets that, and I did say this to Don. I go, there were a couple markets where I was head-to-head with Howard in Hartford, in Orlando, and I did, in a competitive type way, talk some smack about him. And he goes, oh, man, don't worry about that. Howard probably doesn't even know about it. I go, okay. And then he goes, he asked me one question. He said, what type of relationship do you have with your mother? I go, oh, my God, my mom is my world. Like, and that's the truth. I mean, you guys know that. I mean, I'm not fibbing on that. I fret over my mother. I mean, as soon as I go to see my mom, I'm just, I just love her so much.
Oh, yeah,
she's my world. And he goes, all right, hold on a second. He goes, do me a favor. Go ahead and leave my office, and you're going to go down 3 doors, and on the third door, past 2 doors, but on the third door, make a right, and there's a conference room in there, and there you go, and sit down. All right. So I went down there, walked in past the secretary, past 2 doors, went to the third door, made a right, and there was Howard. In the dark, had the conference room had all the lights turned off, and there was Howard. Now, if you're in radio, and
sounds like some Wizard of Oz type stuff here.
But it is.
does.
But I mean, if you're in radio, I mean, like this is like the Tom Brady. I mean, this is the greatest of all time.
Meeting Michael Jordan.
Yeah, for real. So he stood up and he goes, Bubba Howard, and I was amazed by how tall he was. I was like, oh my God. I think he's 6'7". I think Howard's 6'7", 6'8".
Were you blown away by how handsome he was?
He was just Hollywood. He just looked like a star. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He just had his hair done, had like a jean jacket on with like I can remember this like nothing. He had a pair of like Caterpillar work boots. He wore those for I don't know if he still does, but he wore brand new. I mean, kind of like the black guys wear Timberlands.
Yeah.
Maybe the rich Jews wear Cumberlands. I mean, Caterpillars. Maybe the rich Jews wear Caterpillars. I don't know, but he pulled it off nicely. And he was like, "Hi, Bubba, I'm Howard." And I go, "Hi, Howard, Bubba." He goes, "Let's sit down and talk a little bit." So we started talking, and he's like, "Obviously, you answered the questions correctly because you're down here." He goes, "I didn't know if you were going to make it or not."
Oh.
Meaning, like, Don could have told me, "Hey, listen, good seeing you. Now hit the elevators." So I go, "Yeah, well, I guess." And then he said, "Hey, who's your Mount Rushmore?" A lot of times, listen, if you listen to some old Bubba, I never really used the Mount Rushmore analogy. And I just started doing that. And I'll tell you, I picked it up from Howard because the first time that expression was used to me was when I was interviewing with Howard. And he asked me, who was my Mount Rushmore of radio and why? And I said, well, you, Jim Rome, Rush Limbaugh, and Phil Hendry.
Back then, you said Jim Rome?
Yep.
20 years ago?
Yep. Oh, he was hotter then, probably he is now.
Jim Rome was huge back then.
Yeah, he had like 580 radio stations. And he goes, okay. Yeah, and then we just like for an hour, like a couple little bitches just kind of gossiped about radio. And here's
Did he ever ask if you were cold and offer you his jean jacket?
No. No, he probably made me have some hand sanitizer before I shook his hand. Or he may have sanitized afterwards. I don't know. But anyway, his longtime agent and owner and founder of Buchwald and Associates lost his life at age 77. I didn't really get into the details of it. I just saw that he had passed away. So R.I.P. Don and Howard. Sympathy to you and your family. He was your guy. He was your Tom Bean.